What's up?
Okay, we are live.
Hey.
Hey, I'm Tag, the holistic artist with kissmyartsy.com. And this is Tracy Constantine with the motherhouse.org. And we are here today to see what kind of shenanigans are going on with in the world, ourselves, and how we can cope.
Yeah. So we were kind of chatting it up a little bit, and we segued into a couple situations that I'm finding myself in, and we were talking about the people that we want to play with and the people that we don't want to play with, and I guess I'm learning a bit deeper now that there were components that I have developed within my character that kept me safe. They did. They kept me safe. I know that they did. And I really thank them. And I feel like there's a couple things now. Okay, this is what I feel. I feel like when you have gained the awareness, sometimes you'll still fall victim. But then you gain the awareness and the ability to protect yourself within the experience, and then you can kind of play with it a little bit. And this is what I'm finding.
So we're talking about sharing.
We're talking about sharing ourselves, and we're also talking about how to enter into environments or situations or relationships where it resembles the people that we don't want to play with when we were younger or growing up. And perhaps there might be a deeper, perhaps it might be the gateway to actually opening your heart and sharing your heart with boundaries and with safety in a safe way, right? Because I feel like so this is what I feel like. I feel like the energies that I have felt an instant connection with, whether it's a friend or a boyfriend or relationship of any sort, or even family, it tends to become codependent for me. And then the codependent relationships.
Who is dependent and who is the co?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you because there's two different situations. So I'll tell you the exact things that I'm talking about. One is a triangulation with two women and me. And what it looks like is usually a mother figure, a sister figure, and then me.
Okay.
And I am so you have the mother figure, and then you have the daughter figure who does, is the brown noser, right? And is the one who, let's just say, fills the mother. And this is actually the same situation, except for also with the father energy and a daughter or a son. So you have the parent figure, whether it's the mother or the father, and then you have the two children. And the one child is the one that feels maybe that they're not favored naturally. And so what they do is they create a dialogue with that parent to look like they need the favor. I don't know if that makes sense. And then I am the unsuspecting other child who I don't see it coming because I'm just like being me and just kind of like, doing I guess I never really this is I never suspected that um that people needed to do that because my energy is very powerful. And I know that. My
Mhm.
energy is it's a very addicting energy. And I think that my siblings growing up, and I think that a lot of people, when I get into these situations, and the situation is I know a woman who she's very motherly to me, right? And even the names are the same. I'm like, you can't.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and so, th- so she is like, she wants me to come to her and house, her environment, because I am just a big ball of joy. I just kind of, I have fun. I'm like laughing all the time, and people love to be around that. It's like I love to be around it. I'm
Yeah.
noticing like I crack myself up, man. Like
Yeah.
that's okay, right? And then so she wants me to come, and she puts me in the pool. Literally, I'm doing like saltwater pool, like aerobics at her house,
Mhm.
and with another woman who I've already been in this situation where this other woman, you can tell, like I thought that this okay, and I'll just no, I'm not going to say a name. Um, I what I feel like is I really feel a connection with this other, it would be like a sister, right? And
Mhm.
I feel like it's like kind of me and her were like connected. It feels good. Yeah, like everything. But like it ends horribly usually. Like it's just this ugly, it brings out this vibe and the mother woman sense towards me that is like it just it's mean. It's mean. I'm gonna say it's mean, right?
Mhm.
And then what happens for me is that when someone's mean to me, it makes me want to defend myself.
Of course, that's natural.
Okay. And so I'm finding this also with the father figure, which ultimately I'm in the environment of this father figure. And I'm finding that kind of the same thing where I just don't feel like I am being treated um, as I'm worthy enough, or I'm not being seen and heard and all this stuff. And so I'm having all this like mind chatter where it's like, oh my God, they're gonna, treat you like Cinderella.
Mhm.
And so then I'm like feeling like I need to run away, like get the hell out of here because it's not good. And what I'm finding is that I'm at a place, and finally I'm getting to the point of my story. Sometimes it takes a long time. What I'm finding is that a man never stands in the same river twice. And so I feel like I'm in the part of the river where I can approach this situation and lean into it with the knowledge that I have and wisdom that I have, where I don't have to run away. And I don't need to be steamrolled and feel like um, uh, I need to defend myself with the mother, right? Run away from the father situation, defend myself with the mother situation. I don't need to do that anymore. I can just say what I need to say. I think my throat chakra was always closed in those situations.
Oh yeah.
Right. And it was blocked, and I literally couldn't get out what I needed to say to my mother, and I couldn't get out what I needed to say to my father.
Right. Yeah.
Does that make sense? And so now when the mother is, say, this mother figure might be dismissing me, and I feel a hurt from that because she never did that before. And now all of a sudden this third party is there, this sister energy. And now I'm being dismissed. Now I get to say, I don't understand this, and this is how this is making me feel. And I would, do you notice that? Because before, what would happen is I would just keep all this inside, and then ultimately get to a breaking point where then I would turn against the mother.
Mm-hmm.
I would literally want to just say really awful things about her and be mean about her behind her back, because ultimately I felt like I couldn't talk to her. And so I would talk to the sister, right? Here's the triangulation. I would talk to the person who I thought was my friend, who I thought was my
on your side,
because she's sitting here but ultimately what she's doing is now she is using that as fuel to become the better daughter and telling the mother about all the things now that I'm saying bad about the mother. And I'm like, so now I'm caught up in this thing where now the mother is hearing all this from the other chick about how I feel about her. And it's all because the mother's energy changes when this other chick is around.
Right.
Does this make sense?
Yes. I find myself in situations like that a lot, and it would happen to me often, especially among family. And it really caused me to withdraw and be fixated on that situation when I felt as though I couldn't confide in my sister, my sibling, even my brother. I couldn't confide in them because the parent would often talk about them to me. And in my mind, I'm wondering, well, if you're saying this about them, well, then what are you saying about me?
And now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm realizing I'm going to say the F word. It's a mind fuck because you have this really close, say you have a really close relationship when you're alone with a specific parent or a specific sister or brother. But
Right.
Then once there's another energy, say mother, sister, whatever, changes.
Mm-hmm.
And then ultimately you're like, but I thought it was like this, and I thought I had a safe place to express myself, and now I'm realizing it's being mutilated.
This is what's meant when you said a man doesn't stand in the same river twice. Well, river, it's a body of water, it represents emotions, and emotions change because now you've added another person in there. And no one told you that there's going to be rocks in the stream. Your eggshells that you're walking on now, because there is no so how can you backstroke out of that situation? How can you move forward? It's like you're held to a competitive nature that you didn't ask for, because there's always a comparison. You got to keep your mouth shut because you don't want to hurt your feelings, and you don't want to dishonor your parent at the same time. But then you're like, well, okay, well, what about my feelings? Where do I stand in this? And then all of a sudden, here you are now, the scapegoat. Well, hadn't it been for your issues X amount of years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And you're just like, wow. Okay, so now I'm the scapegoat. Okay.
Right. And the thing that I'm realizing is that I made myself the scapegoat, because ultimately how I did that was because I reacted. And so if I could figure out how to respond,
right,
then I would ultimately not need to shut down or run away or yell, defend myself. Right?
Yes. Which means there needs to be a line of communication open.
And
And
number one.
One of the things, one of my musts, my non-negotiables is don't lie to me. I can handle any type of situation at any time. It can be managed, but just don't lie to me, because then I can't help you. I'm not willing to help you. I'm not, I go into protection mode.
I feel like though, Tag, now let's look at the lie. Let's look at the lie in the world, right? And the lies that people tell themselves, because this is a component that I want to learn more about, be aware, be, knowledgeable about, so that I could have more forgiveness for people. Because ultimately that's my number one goal, is if I can have forgiveness for others, but at the same time stay safe and keep my boundaries. I mean, that's a win-win, really, And so, but it's all about dialogue, and it's all about, it's all about, I think the biggest thing, I'm going to say dialogue. And one of the things is that I have expectations that people are going to lie. They are, because we all lie. That's what we do. And, there's two different kinds of lies. One is the knowing, the malicious lies. People are like, I know I'm lying, and I'm lying too, right? And so we're like, I know that one, I don't want that around me either. Like, I totally get you, right? And then there's another one where they're lying, but they are just ignorant to the fact because of where it's coming from. It's coming from their subconscious, and their conscious and subconscious aren't connected. And you can see, or maybe not even we can see, but we need to uncover where this lie is coming from and how to do that. How do we do that? And what does the dialogue look like for that?
I feel as though the lie is coming from, or an untruth or half truth, whatever you want to label it, is coming from the fear of that person making a mistake and being judged for it. So, you create this narrative that's in your favor versus me. I'm really rough around the edges, so I'm just like, just tell it like it is. Because I'll say in a minute, look, I messed up royally. So you can ask the question or create a dialogue to say, okay, well, okay, how did you mess up? Versus trying to tell a story to cover up my mess up in order to get help, So, I would, being the scapegoat, I would always be put in situations to defend myself, because I was blamed for a lot of things that were out of my control. Like this morning, I was late. And the first thing I said to you is like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm late. I'm acknowledging that I'm late, because I'm right here. There's no other place to go. And you have some comforting words to say, you're right where you need to be. You have enough skill and enough knowledge to self-entertain until, we progress. So that was comforting. However, the world is not going to treat you that way. It's going to point the finger at you and judge you and say, you're late.
I love this. I love that. I love you bringing this up, because this is the piece where so is it important to, like, I'm saying this to myself too, because this is kind of what I had to go through. So allow them to have that discomfort and say, wow, are you okay? Like, because that's not their discomfort about you being late is not a flaw of yours. That is ultimately other people's discomfort about people being late, and they want you to soothe that by being, the scapegoat, right?
Oh, I mean, I came prepared because I was carrying the baggage of all those old memories and emotions of the way how I was felt of being on time, but because there was another person involved, caused me to be late, and the blame was on me, when I was just self-entertaining until that person was ready so we can, move forward. But I overhear the conversation to say, oh, well, it was her fault, she was doing this. And I'm like, wait a minute, it's not my fault. But being dependent on an adult to, lead you through this, it's like, wow, I just can't believe they threw me under the bus like this. So a child is going to shut down instead of speaking up and saying, Mommy, you caused us to be late. Remember when you did this, and this. There is a certain child that will do that, and it's not right, it's not wrong, it's just what is. It has a healthy boundary to say, Mom, that's not true. We were late because of you, or father, or, whoever was in control at that time. So yeah, I just came prepared with the baggage to be able to carry those emotions so I could feel badly for being late.
You know what? Okay, so because every person needs something different, right? So there are people out there who are always late, and they're going to need a different spiel, right? They're going to need the spiel like, it's important that, that we try and get here on time, and that we're ready for this thing, because I see a trend or a pattern where, you have a difficult time, making it, right? Where I wouldn't say that to you, because you are the person who is always on time, and then that occasional one, you're frantically like, I'm sorry, I'm late, or whatever. And also, or maybe you are the one who's always late, but ultimately how you show up is exacerbating what that lateness is. And then ultimately that is what's in your subconscious. And then that's what perpetuates the more lateness. And so I feel like it's every situation and every experience and every person is going to need a little bit of a different direction. Mm-hmm. And it's good to bring in the polarity to kind of help people see what's in the shadow, because somebody who is frantic to get to someplace and be on time all the time, it might be that they're always late because that's what's in their awareness. And if they are able to comfort and be comforted. So if we did a little like role play where you came on and you were like, I'm sorry, I'm so late, right? And this is what I have found for myself, because I was that person too. And I still probably am, but I have changed a couple of things. Mm-hmm. I would say, don't say that unless somebody says to you, hey, could you not be, late anymore? Do you think that we could like kind of be on time this time or whatever? And then you could say, I apologize for that, and I will work on it. But until somebody says something, you just have an internal dialogue with yourself that says, you're okay, you're working on this. You don't have to apologize unless somebody says something to you, but you don't have to offer things that are not requested.
Mm, yeah. I'm going to have to pack that one away because, I would like to move forward in that mind frame. When I was part of the corporate world, good employees were let go because they were late. And for a company to let go of a good worker, a hard worker, and someone that cooperates, that makes an effort to cooperate with other people in such a small environment, and to let them go over something so petty over that instead of allowing them to make up the time, it puts you in a negative mind frame of that company, your role and responsibility there, and you wanting to commit to this company outside of the allocated hours that they give you. I've seen this tactic ruin people's lives over 5 minutes, and it's uncalled for. So, being an entrepreneur, you're in a different leadership. Everything is generated off of your own energy, as there's no one else to blame. And so it's like, how do you take a responsibility for, tardiness without shaming yourself in the process? So you can share in this, when you're sharing space, because when you add another person to the situation, for me, my experience, I want to be respectful, because at that moment, that other person is agreeing with you that there's no other place they'd rather be except right here, right now, which, it goes back to, I rather respond than react. And this is what I tell a lot of people as well. Give me a choice, because if I have to react to something, a lie, a betrayal, something that has lost the open communication, it takes my voice away, and I'm having to do damage control. Not only do I have to do damage control on myself, I got to do damage control on that other person and reading their actions and their energy, the space, the environment around me. So it's like an instant breakdown. Rather, if I respond, then I still have my choice in the matter, and I can express, okay, I understand that you're late this time. Could you not do it next time? Can you be more aware? Don't start any new projects 15 minutes before you got to be on, So that I can appreciate. Except I cannot appreciate the havoc behavior of being in distress and you're just frantic as I receive that, because I understand things come up. It just happens. We're not in a perfect world. So being on the other side of that, because it's happened to me where I've been the person waiting. And like you, I'm just like, it is what it is. We tried it. It didn't work. Let's shoot for the next time. No sweat, And then I feel that other judgment of, oh, you're too relaxed. You're too pleasing. You're too, because I'm not reacting the way how somebody else wants me to react by joining in their shame, and preventing the situation.
I think that, so I hear what you're saying, because, I have seen this, and I was a participant in this as well. The whole, the whole letting go of people, good workers, who are, for something as small as time clock shit. At the same time, I do believe that it's a difficult thing. Okay. two things that come to my mind. One is that everybody there's a couple main characters in the world, I think, foundations of these people, right? Some people are the ones who work better without a schedule, and some are the ones that work better with a schedule. And so obviously in a scheduled environment such as that, the ones who are very good at clocking in at 11 o'clock on a dot or whatever, right? They're gonna be very successful in that type of environment.
Yeah.
And other people who are, I'm there when nature tells me to be there, right? And so like my last job, I loved my job. I'm going to tell you, like, I loved my job. There were like all those components were amazing until they merged with a bigger company and then started to like request weird things. But I think ultimately it was just because, to be honest with you, rejection is God's protection, and it was just time for me to go.
Mm-hmm.
And God knew, the powers, the divine knew that, when I say God, I mean mother, father, child, whatever the hell it's up there, some type of weird pattern. I don't know. But it knew that I needed to be rejected because there were other things that I needed to do, like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't happy about it. And it was really hard to accept that. And it was painful and very sad for me to look at those things and why I'm feeling such shame and hatred for myself and all of those lower vibrations, because like, why can't I just fit in? But it was an environment that allowed me to, one of my bosses, she was very motherly to me and she saw the gifts that I had.
Mm-hmm.
I felt her see the gifts that I had, but she was the only one. And so she didn't call all the shots, but she called the shots for quite a while, and it was really good. And like, I just had an internal clock. I knew, like, I would show up early on the days that like the night person needed to leave early, or I would show up on a later, right? It always just worked out. And like how I did my work at like my nursing work, it was great because it was a 24-hour facility. So like, I could put this stuff away and file that when the pile got big enough for me to like do all that at one time. And then I would do this, and I just had like kind of my own kind of flow, and I was allowed to do that. Unlike when I worked at the hospital and they were like, you need to do all of this now and this now and this now. And then I found myself like working twice or maybe 3 times as hard, because that's just not how my brain flowed. And it felt like I was doing a lot of small incremental things over and over and over again, because they had timing for everything.
Yeah.
And it wasn't natural. And the thing is that, and things would get missed because of it. So like we had to do like urine collection amounts every single shift on every single client. And what they found, they did some studies on this, and what they found with people who just learned how to click button, how to do it on every client, because that's what they say to do.
Yeah.
Our regulations is the important ones would get missed.
Mm,
The
mm,
important ones, the ones where you really needed to pay attention because you're always doing this,
yeah.
that the important stuff would get missed. And so and I saw that and I'm like, God, why are we doing all this extra work for nothing?
Yeah.
And and I knew, like, I had this innate intuition in my body that said, those five, that's not really important, but this one is.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yes. I understand completely because I'm not one of those people that does very well in a super structive um, environment like that. It's like overly structured, structured. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. Where you're punching a time clock. If you're 5 minutes over or 5 minutes under the appointed time, you're penalized for it. And I'm one of those people that, yes, there is a time frame to work within. Productivity will always be there. Hard work will always be there, but not given the choice to be able to have that ebb and flow, I just do not do very well in that kind of environment. And it's been a struggle for me because I'm a go-getter. If I start at a basic level, I'm gonna want to, climb that ladder. And I've been in corporate management, higher management situations that I had to learn how to create another identity for myself to relate to um, within that working time frame, which my creativity kind of suffered behind it because it kind of like suppressed that creativity part of me that really thrives on ebb and flow, you know. Um, and when I started working for myself, I realized how important it is to start a class on time, teach it in bite-sized pieces, and close it at a good time. So when people left, they felt good about their accomplishment during that class, or they felt the challenge and push their own self to be able to push past that barrier. So
Yeah.
I've been on both sides of the coin to learn and manage both.
Yeah, I think it comes down to what I saw, and this also was even when I was in the restaurant working. I worked in restaurants for 20 years prior to being a nurse,
Mhm.
and there were two different environments. There were the environment where you had the micromanaging, where like most of their time was spent like just making sure people clocked in,
Right, right.
or like they just didn't have enough trust that things needed to unfold between um, the the workers,
Yeah.
and and they would get involved too soon or in a way that was it kind of goes back to that triangulation thing. You're like believing in one because you have, you're basing it on your own bias or whatever. And so ultimately how to get around that is I don't know, maybe it's just it's just the way that place needs to be. And
Yeah.
maybe God's weeding people out that way. I don't know. And then there's another way, and you know what? This is the truth too. Actually, no, it's not. It's that's when it's corrupt, and ultimately that's when management has crossed boundaries
Mm.
certain members of the team that are the workers.
Mhm.
And I found this to be true even in the restaurant business, where, especially in the restaurant business, where management, the places where I worked, where management like partied with the with the employees, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
then I did work in one. Um, it was an Applebee's in Concord, New Hampshire. I worked in the Applebee's, and the management did not cross boundaries with the staff, and it was a noticeable difference.
Yes.
Like the environment of the work environment was just, there was a boundary there. It felt better.
Showed a level of respect for authority versus when you party with them. I've worked in both as well back in the day. And the ones that were management would party with the crew and stuff. It was a toxic environment.
It's a toxic environment.
Very toxic. So, then it showed me early on where my priority needed to be at. And my priority was myself, because, in the restaurant business, you made your money on tips. It was no paycheck. So you had to be charming to the clients, to the customers. And, I didn't party with them because I had other things going on. I was in school, I had to have all these jobs to be able to live. And so I was not considered the cool kid to hang out with, the partiers. So, making myself a priority, I would collect business cards from the clients that would be there on a regular basis, because I mostly did, cocktails and things like that. And so when it was a slow night, because I always got the worst shifts, always, I would just start calling those business people, and say, hey, your favorite table is open. Put another coin in the pay phone. It was back in those days. Hey, it's a slow night here. Have you had any dinner yet? And so this guaranteed my salary, so to speak, outside of that toxic environment. But I was a part of both, and it showed. You're right. It showed there. When you're in a leadership role, the responsibilities, the roles, it changes. You're held at a higher expectation of what you're doing for the company you're working for, if you're working for yourself or not. So keeping it all together is like challenging.
Yeah. Where do you find your friends, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest with you, it's not at work.
No, it is
It's
not.
not.
Your paycheck is your thank you.
It's not. It's not at work. And the thing is that I am, and I even think it said it in like one of my like star charts or somewhere, I don't know, numerology, that I really liked a family environment in my work. And
It can get pretty toxic too. I was in that environment as well. But like you said, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And when it's time to go, you try to leave in peace, hug and release. Hug, release.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So that's an interesting fact. But let's we can finish it off with a couple little star cards here. One for me, one for you, one for the people at home. All right, tell me when to stop.
Stop.
All right. You get
Abundance. When your heart's intention is to serve humanity, doors of abundance naturally open. Yes, that came at at the best moment. Yes, at the right time that came.
This is mine.
Free spirit. To be a free spirit is to float without walls, to fly without judgment, and to love without conditions. Yeah.
Same for me. That's really big, because I'm like just learning that I just need to like allow the energy to flow through and just keep being me. And for the, I'll let you say stop for all the watchers, all of our community we're building.
Stop.
Oh, they got this too.
Abundance. Wow. Yeah. Yes. The world is abundant. It is abundant. It is.
Intention is to serve humanity. Oh, so yep. So the key point, everybody, is when your intention is to serve humanity, the doors. So how can you serve humanity? And I'll tell you, a lot of people get this twisted because sometimes how you serve humanity is ultimately just loving yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. There's serve and service. It's two different, is very different. Yes.
And you just need to know where like at that time you need to uh just have some you need to learn some dialogue between your body and the body of the earth and figure out where to put your energy, because if you don't have any energy of your own, then what are you giving away? And then ultimately, if you have too much because you're just in yourself all the time, then ultimately that's when it would serve you to balance out and put your efforts into the collective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes. Speaking of abundance, I like to share a story.
Mhm.
So, my body completely tensed up before I got on this call with you today. And I spoke to the insurance company about a car accident that I had the first of the year, and they do not want to pay out. The number that they threw at me was the settlement number was insulting. And I can instantly feel my body tense up, because they are not serving their clients with the abundance of, what's my card say? My card?
What's coming to my mind is fairness, but when your heart's intention is to serve humanity, doors of abundance naturally open.
Yes, they're not serving humanity because of their policies and procedures that they put in play not to serve, not to be of service. And I'm thinking, great, now I got to get an attorney. Now I have to do all these things to fight for my rights, for an insurance company that you spend month after month paying into in case of an accident such as this. That has really left me burdened with a lot of things that are unnecessary if they are to serve. And so pulling this card, which is, universal law, this is just the emotion that I am feeling and I'm trying to wrap my head around to be able to respond instead of react. Do I want to get a lawyer? No, I do not. I don't want to get an attorney, but it might be an option. And so drawing this card, I'm thinking of, the key word is serving humanity. Okay. I might not be part of that scenario in this situation here, but I have to ask for the understanding of what am I supposed to be learning here? What am I supposed to be receiving from this? And how I'm going to process this, what needs to come forward. So this is a great situation right here of receiving that card, so I don't take it personal, because
I love you. That's just beautiful.
it's two different things. Saying it when it's happening to you is very different when you're saying it and it's happening to someone else. And so I know what I need to do and how I need to activate some joy codes to be able to feel what I can respond and how I'm going to respond with, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for pulling that card, receiving my energy, and giving me a clue how I need to move forward, because I am trying to, throughout the day, I'm going to be looking for the sense of humor in this.
Yeah. And the answers will come, right? They do.
It
They
will,
do, especially when you are when you go through this type of process, like you're saying. It's a beautiful thing to like be able to have a situation happen, allow it to create whatever emotions it needs to create, and then take a step back and principles over personalities, and really see what is going to serve you and the collective in the best way, and what there is to learn from it, and all this other stuff. And ultimately the divine, like every twist and turn of this will be a new lesson and a new or maybe old process with the divine that's within you. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
absolutely. And maybe I should make a note so I can follow up on at another time to let everyone know how I process this, how, what I received by activating my joy codes to respond with something that is going to benefit me in the long run. Because as long as I stay in a reactive mode, I'm going to try to push throughout my day, and it's going to bring towers and other areas of my life that will be out of my control. And so the only control that I have is to manage me right now, to be able to receive the divine answers, and really and truly, it's really that easy. But, so many of us get caught up in reacting that we force issues and bring on more shadow things that haven't really been dealt with, or has been dealt with poorly, because it's recycling back,
Because we're so powerful. We are so powerful. And when we have built up a resistance to what our body is telling us, and just wants to express itself, and I am a victim of this myself, it is hard to take a step back. And so man, it feels good. That's where I was yesterday too. I was in that place yesterday, and it gets so, and then actually it's interesting because I would actually vocalize it as yesterday was the earthquake for me, and today I'm feeling some aftershocks. Because even like today I was like, all right, we're going to get back to business, and we're going to just do some productive stuff and just allow yourself to make mistakes and go down the wrong roads. And as soon as the whatever computer software I was using wasn't responding the way I wanted it to, I could feel this like you're saying, like tightness, hot wave, like fire inside of me that just wanted to like breathe fire out of me and like, punch the screen or throw my computer. Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I don't want to go back to where I was yesterday because that was, you know, tough. But I do want to allow it to express itself. And so I noticed it, I named it, and I was like, okay, you want some action here. You want to be seen and heard. Wow, it's really hot and it's really tight and it's really interesting. I'm gonna allow you. And to be honest with you, I believe that because it's an electrical thing and it's we are electrical magnetic beings, that the computer feels the and will feel that.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
it's like everything like goes haywire.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I'm just like, now I'm like having a dialogue with that. I'm like, oh, you see me. Okay. And I see you. You're okay, bouncing off of that. I'm sorry. I'm gonna like, you're feeling like you're gonna explode like a volcano because that's what I feel in my body. We'll just give it some time here and then we'll let this settle a little bit and we'll come back. And so yes, I completely understand where you're at. Maybe it's the moon right now too, energy.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of the moon, so Monday I was really going through it emotional wise, and I was just like beating myself up and stuff. And I took a walk, went to the park, and it was super hot. It seemed like the air was still, it was just, it felt icky outside, it felt icky inside. And I'm like, the walls are around me and starting to close in. And I'm sitting by this tree and, I look at the tree and I say, okay, divine, you got to show me the sense of humor in this day. Less than 5 minutes later, I see this guy walking a cat on a leash, and this kid pulling a chicken a live chicken. He's strapped to a skateboard and he's pulling it behind him. And I just started laughing. And I'm like, thank you so much for allowing me to see the sense of humor in this day, because I mean, I was just going through it. Yeah. And, if that situation right there taught me, okay, there's a glitch in the matrix. I know that I can just, woosah, inhale, exhale, and everything is going to be okay. And, eventually my day did get better and I was able to wrap my head around my emotions and carry on the rest of the day. And it was great. Yeah. So, yes, I'm going to go ask, what is the sense of humor in this situation? So I can laugh about it, activate those joy codes, and, respond with human decency for myself,
Yay, I love that for you. I think we're at the end.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I am tagged with the Holistic Artist with kissmyrt.com. And this is Tracy Constantine with themotherhouse.org. And this time I am going to paste our information in the pinned comments instead of the description. So you don't have to read through all that if you don't want to. You can just look at it at the first comment that comes up. So look for this shortly. Yeah.
Yay. See you next one.
Okay.
Peace out, brown trouts.